But could you run that via a script as well, Ben? If someone said, no, don't block it at our firewall, but you'd want to run it maybe in the RMM checking, for example, if it's could that fire via a script?
I don't know. I know it's pretty new. It was actually developed by, I think, a college kid that was just out for a project. So it's still pretty new. I don't think it has an API that you can use quite yet.
Interesting. Good. All right. Well, let's get on into it here. Thanks and welcome for thanks. Always great to have you guys with us. Welcome back. Jim, I'm going to let you kick things off today. I think you had a question or two for everybody, but we'll start with SaaS Alert CEO Jim and bring us up to speed if you would.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Great to see you all. So as we head into the summer here, we have every intention of meeting our intended release date on what we call Fortify. And we know, based on a lot of feedback from folks, that this is some functionality that a lot of folks want, and we think it'll be a game changer in terms of not just people getting a lot of benefit from it, but wanting to cover their entire customer base with it. So right now, we've gone and talked to a bunch of folks with the name Fortify. We've gotten a few folks that have said to us that, there's something formally in the ConnectWise ecosystem called Fortify. So I just wanted to know if anyone was aware of that, and if that, in your opinion, should discourage us from branding this functionality Fortify. So would love any input.
ConnectWise's security product, their SIM and SentinelOne are referred to as Fortify. I think the names are horrible, by the way, because they're very nondescript in their context.
Right.
And when they use those kind of things on their invoices, and it's like they're all similar. It's absolutely horrible. I don't think it matters. I wouldn't object to it if you're using a similar name, because I don't think it has enough similarity where I would be confused by it, or any more than I am with their stuff.
Got it. So, our friend Andrew did a little homework for us as well. And recently, ConnectWise actually changed. So it's not even called Fortify anymore. It's formally Fortify. They now call it ConnectWise Cybersecurity Management Solutions.
I haven't seen that on my monthly invoice.
I was going to say, Gary, I'm sure the invoice hasn't been updated, even though the market.
So it looks like they're bundling a bunch of things together under that umbrella.
Well, that's what the Fortify umbrella was for some period of time. And, they had Fortify Assessment, and I don't know what Fortify Assessment is, and neither does anybody else I ask.
Yeah,
so,
it might have been historically identified, Gary, and I think you're right. I think the legacy goes, it was, Carver, IRC, that got purchased, which was the original SentinelOne offered MSPs, which got acquired by Continuum, which then was called Fortify under Continuum, which then got acquired by ConnectWise, which was at that time still called Fortify, which eventually became now the overarching cybersecurity solution. So that's what I believe. Good point, Chris. There are a ton of those as well. Fortinet, and I'm trying to remember the SIM that Fortinet purchased, because there's a bunch of
FortiSIM.
Yeah, but it's FortiSIM, but I'm just trying to remember the original company they purchased. I'm drawing a blank on it, but yeah, that is a lot of history, right, Mike?
Okay. Well, I don't see a lot of objections here, so we like it for what we do, and we just released Unify, so it's kind of consistent with what our naming configuration is going to be going forward. So I just want to check in on that.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff that once that comes out, Jim. Will there be a quote unquote beta of it? Like how do Lebron and Chip
Yes,
see this kind of being rolled out, if you will?
definitely a beta, but I'll let them speak to it.
Sure.
So there's definitely going to be a beta. Jim was asking me if it could be ready like tomorrow or something, and unfortunately not. The beta will not be ready tomorrow. We're gonna definitely have a beta. If you're interested in getting involved with the beta, contact your account manager. And if you're not sure who your account manager, you can always contact support, and those guys will put you in touch with your account manager. We also have an existing list of a bunch of people who've expressed interest already. So if you are interested, please let us know. But at the same time, understand that when you participate in the beta, there could be a few kinks, and we are looking for feedback in order to improve the product.
Yeah, awesome. I know Ryan McCarty's on. Ryan, any easy quote unquote easy button for people to get a hold of their who their account person is and those types of things?
Well, you can always reach out to me. I know who they are specifically. I know there's a mix between Connor, Dana, and Alex, but you can always reach out to Ryan at saasalerts.com.
Sure. Eric Monroe, do you have a mic by chance?
I do.
Hey, bud. When you say Azure endpoint, your question mark.
Yeah, so are you going to be able to use Fortify with Azure endpoint? Most of our apps now are.
I was typing up a follow-up to your question. Do you mean you want to monitor Azure activity, like I spun up a new server or things like that?
No, your Fortify solution, right? It's going to associate workstations with the logins, and if we could associate them with the Azure endpoint, would work well for us instead of RMN.
Oh, I think he's thinking of the
Unify.
Unify.
Okay, sorry.
Eric, come on, you got to get these names correct. This is on you, the MSP, not the SaaS company.
So that brings up a point. Are you guys thinking about a word that all of these different products would spell out to link it all together?
We'd like no, we're not thinking of that.
All right.
We like the MRR module piece. It's 3 letters that most MSPs really like. We like.
I'm good with that.
And then just essentially adding additional functionality as it makes sense to each module. Right? Like it made sense to put Unify in with Respond, that functionality, because they're like peanut butter and jelly at this point. And it makes sense to manage a configuration with Fortify, right? So it's an easy slide in under manage. So we think we're going to stick with the 3 modules and just add functionality to it.
Jim, can we go back though to Eric's question where he's thinking, hey, I don't want it to correlate RMM, but Azure endpoint. Can you give us a use case, Eric? Are you thinking more in the cloud, like folks are using, when you say Azure endpoint, I'm thinking server, but are you thinking of it more so of how, like, I guess Microsoft thinks of Azure, because it could be the back end of M365. Maybe talk to us a little bit about how you're correlating, or what would you like correlated?
Well, we'd like to move away from an RMN, right? And Azure has their endpoint manager for the MDM, which can include endpoints. Endpoints is workstations. So, we can manage everything into an endpoint manager. And if we're using SaaS alerts, it'd be nice to correlate the login from whatever location, and if it's using the actual endpoint of that user, and they can use that as your endpoint manager agent to verify that user is using their computer.
Is it me, or do you have does Eric, do you guys hear a lot of jitter on Eric?
A lot of jitter.
Okay.
I apologize.
But I think we got the main gist. Chip, you want to tackle that?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a similar question that we had around Intune for endpoints, whether or not we're going to incorporate picking up data directly from Intune, and we've stayed away from the Intune side of it just because there's very few MSPs that are using it. We haven't really considered Azure Endpoint Manager. We'll have to do some digging on that, Eric, and see what kind of market penetration there is and what's the potential there. We are working on an alternative solution for MSPs who are using RMMs that we don't cover today. This would sort of fall into the same category. MSPs who want to get away from an RMM, maybe most of their clients are now 100% cloud-based and the device management is no longer part of their practice. We are working on a solution to gather data directly from devices without an agent. So that's all. I think that's all I should say about that at this point, but we'll definitely look into the Azure Endpoint Manager functionality and see what's available to us from an API.
Yeah, thank you. We're using Endpoint Manager as our device management tool in many cases.
All right. Jim, other things from your seat?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
Oh, yes, one last thing. So thank you for those that made entries to the Cool Rules Challenge. We've got all the entries in, and in the coming days, matter of fact, I think in 2 weeks on this call, we're announcing the winners, aren't we, Michelle?
Yep, 15th.
Okay, so the 15th, we've got 14 days to find out who the big winners are in the latest Cool Rules Challenge.
Must be present to win.
Yes, that's a good rule, Chip. Must be present to win. Spread the word.
All right. All right, Michelle, what you got for us?
I just have a couple things. Marketing has been hard at work these days, trying to put together more collateral, specifically sales enablement pieces for you guys. We have one that we just did that it compares Microsoft security or Microsoft 365 security with SaaS alert security. That's a really good, easy one to show. It's got the little check boxes. It's very cool. We're also working on a co-managed piece that I'm hoping will be done today or tomorrow. We have put together a good overview of SaaS alerts. These can all be branded. And I don't know who's using Channel Programs PRM, but that's where all of our marketing stuff is going now. I will also send you the link to join our I don't know what they call it, portal. I just put that in the chat. So all of the stuff can be found there. If there's something that you would like to see, something that we don't have, please reach out to your account manager and we will put it on our list. That's one. The second thing is we have a webinar coming up on June 13th. If you find that link as well. And that is going to be great for folks who struggle with prospecting. Our NCA team, Pat Sullivan and his crew will be on talking about how you can use reporting to help sell your services. We'll talk about overcoming objections, stuff like that. So it's going to be really good. And that's June 13th at 1 Eastern time. Hope to see you there.
All right. Good stuff. Ryan and or Chip, do you guys have anything before I kick in here?
I'm good to go on the account management side. As always, we appreciate you guys and the Cool Rules challenges that you put in and keeping in touch with your specific reps.
Good. And
Yeah, I think we'll leave it there, Andrew. Last week we launched into a question to partners, and that wound up taking up 56 minutes of our 1 hour call, which was a great roundtable. But I know we have some agenda items we want to cover today, so I think we'll leave it there.
yeah, no, it's absolutely fine. I mean, I personally, and like I said, in the years of doing these types of calls, I think that's the spirit of the call. So, you know, if that happens, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but I'm definitely gonna try and stay on track today, Chip. So,
And I'm trying to help you.
thanks, brother. All right. So I had a few things in the news that I wanted to bring up with you all, that again, you could use in your businesses. Again, a means of getting in front of customers and prospects. CISA, I don't know if has anybody, maybe Michelle, you can be my eyes in chat, but has anybody seen this recent announcement from CISA? Chip, you're shaking your head. Does this speak to you at all? And love, and even though it's short and sweet, I think it's really interesting, again, how threat actors play on timeliness, how they play on people's heartstrings, so to speak, right? And how it's easy to fall prey. Now, again, we don't necessarily have typhoons, but we are falling into hurricane season. And or you might maybe have you might be in a religious organization that has ties overseas, and a typhoon hits, and it's not abnormal to get something maybe quote unquote from your church about, hey, would you help out? So Chip, your thoughts on this, and then we can go around the horn, and I'll put the URL in chat for everybody as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good reminder from CISA that, you know, there's a reason they call it social engineering, right? It's all about driving on people's psychology and getting them to act. And obviously that's easier to do when people are have their guard down because they're distracted by some kind of a crisis, whether it's a geopolitical crisis or it's it's a climate situation like this or a weather related situation like this. Anything that can allow a bad actor to leverage the lack of attention, or even better yet, leverage your particular attention towards something and get you to take an action, clicking on a link, engaging in a chat discussion. There's lots of different ways that people are going to social engineer to try and compromise accounts. But the underlying underpinning of hacking really hasn't changed all that much since the term really came into effect all the way back to the phone hackers, before any of the technology that we talk about today was in it. It's all about co-opting people psychologically. And I think this is a good reminder. Yeah,
absolutely. Really good summary, Chip. Anyone else? Any of you doing any? And again, this is my quote unquote my beef with security awareness training. And let me explain what I mean by that. Security awareness training, by and large, is very static versus dynamic. Like the things that are really in real time are the things that I think we need to bring, as means of bringing into our customers and prospects' attention. I don't know. Does that make sense? Does that resonate with you all? Like where, most people are, they'll get their security awareness training and it's a set and forget. Okay, it's going to send out this campaign. It's going to send out this campaign. It's going to send out this campaign. And it's typically, stick-based reinforcement. You messed this up, therefore you shall now do this stuff. And you were going to do this phishing simulation, and on and on and on. Whereas, hey, these are real-time issues that are actually occurring right now. So Ben, what do you mean starts strong and then fades over time?
Campaigns.
Basically mean that, when we first start awareness training, everybody's taking it, and then, a couple months, a year later, no one's taking it, and phishing simulations are becoming more successful. That's what we've seen over multiple clients.
Yeah. That's really interesting. And it really has, when they say, right, it's checkbox functionality with regulation, right? In other words, take the fact that we should be doing it as basic, right, security control, right? When you look at Sunil's cyber defense matrix and you look at user, right, user protect, security awareness training, that's where that falls. But it's often because we have a regulated client and we need the auditors to go, yes, we satisfied that control, where we're not really taking into account what, what is real time, what they're going to potentially be socially engineered with. I'm reading Adams here. I heard some SAT vendors are starting to use AI to generate phishing simulation and training from recent. Yeah. I think it's I think it's a really great and interesting way to do it, Adam. So we'll see how AI plays into this. Anyway, any comments on this? Any other thoughts, concerns, comments, and or ways in which hopefully you guys use this to get in front of customers and prospects? Anyone? All right, let's go to the bigger one here, which is another way in which I'm sure my gut, I'm going to yes or no, if you could put in chat. Have you all heard of the upcoming FTC rule coming out? Yep. Anyone else besides Ben?
Yep.
Only me. Only me.
DC stuff right now.
Okay. So now, okay, now we're getting some yeses. So first off, I'll put the URL in for those that haven't. I kind of liken this to, and Bob, good to see you, Bob. Miss you. Bob's got a strong cyber background. I'd love to get his thoughts on this. I kind of liken it to the beginnings of HIPAA, Chip, like where, we still even have people that, organizations that aren't HIPAA compliant, right? And still aren't adhering to it. And how is it going to be enforced? And, who will be made an example of? So that'll be interesting to see first and foremost. But who's it affecting? And, when you dig into it, they talk about having at least 5,000 records. And let's just talk about first who it's impacting. Bear with me. I think I went right past it. Which is it has to do with financial institutions. However, they're broad in terms of what that means. Because it has to do with anything from CPA firms to car or loan, automobile. Sorry guys, bear with me. So if you have any clients that are, oh, here we go. Thanks guys for your patience. So anybody have people in these businesses?
Got to be a lot of MSPs that cover small accounting firms.
This
Yeah.
is right. I gotta believe you guys deal with these types of companies. No?
Financial services got to be a lot.
Yeah.
What are account servicers? Yeah.
We do, and we're having those conversations with them.
What are they saying, Gary?
It depends on the firm. We have some firms who take it seriously, and then there are others who kind of brush it off. And, those are the people who are not investing in security or the advanced security mechanisms. And, ultimately, we're getting to the point where they're going to have to sign on the dotted line and said, I accept my own risk.
Mm-hmm. And are those companies, Gary, acknowledging, like, do they understand how the records are registered? Like, in other words, how they look at 5,000 records. It's really, what's interesting. I was talking to somebody about this, about like, they took a CPA firm as an example, small CPA firm, Gary. And they're like, it's a small CPA firm. They're not going to have 5,000 records. And he's like, well, wait a minute. How many clients do you have? Well, we have this many business and this many personal, customers. And then he's like, okay, I'm your customer, but you also have, it's me, my wife, my 2 kids who are now over 21. So what the point being is that real quick, someone that says, oh, I only have, one of your records. No, you don't. You have a lot more than one of my records.
Well, but hold on. What's the definition of a record? Is it just about the people, or is it some of the information that's tied to the people, like 10 years worth of returns that have some information in it? Is that, do they all count, or is it one unique person?
Gary, I won't profess to be right the arbiter of the ruling, but my understanding was, a personal identifiable record.
And some of the stuff that we saw, Andrew, recently was the fact that a record was really, they were really referring to an individual. So those 10 years of returns really comes down to one. But what we're seeing is a lot of people are focusing on this 5,000 when they shouldn't be, because 5,000 doesn't exempt people from the entire regulation. It only exempts certain parts of it.
Yeah, talk to us about that, Bob. Like, what do you mean, if you would?
So when you see 5,000 in there, you don't have to comply with certain attributes of the statute. So there's like 3 things that don't apply, and one of them is might be a formal risk assessment or an external penetration test. But these are the things that we should be doing anyway. And I'm actually brushing over the whole fact of whether or not they have 5,000 records or not. I said, listen, you guys need to protect yourself. The FTC is putting regs in place right now.
Do we lose Bob a little there, or is it me?
Protect consumers. GoodRx was just fined $1 FTC. Ah, crap! Did I go out again?
No,
Got your back.
you're back, Bob.
You got your back, Bob.
So so GoodRx was fined $1.3 million for data breach because of by the FTC for records. So, and the other thing is I had an attorney on the podcast, I think 3 weeks ago, and we went through that list of people there, and he goes, don't use that as the exhaustive list of who needs to comply. Look at the functions of what they do. So anyone that brings financing to the table as part of the transaction is potentially has to comply.
Bob, just quickly, like who maybe like rose up in that conversation that you wouldn't know normally? Like, we're looking here at mortgage lenders and finance. You go, okay, makes sense.
Contractors.
Oh wow! So
Real estate agents.
Think about it. When's the last time you bought a pool for cash?
Got it.
Solar people, solar panel people.
Insurance agents.
Yeah.
Insurance agents are explicitly called out in the reg.
Yeah, I saw that
on a different page. So all the insurance agencies, the title agencies, the independent insurance agencies are a good one for us.
Bob,
I just thought about it. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Would even something, for example, like I know recently, like I had to get some new appliances, right? And here in Tampa, there's this company called Famous Tate. They have 12 locations. It's just family owned. But with something like that, again, where I didn't take financing from them, but they do offer it, is that something there?
So if you look at the very last definition of what they call a non-banking financial institution, they created something called a finder. The finder is anyone that brings financing to anyone that causes financing to happen as part of the transaction.
Got it.
So if that contractor or brings a business card of say, here, go call Steve to get financing for this, he's technically a finder.
So even if they don't process the application,
correct. It actually says they don't have to actually be part of it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Guys, this applies to every gym and fitness organization that do terms on their membership. And
in individual terms, I'm not sure about.
It's a good question, Andy. It's a really good question. But it would certainly I'm assuming a lot of organizations.
There is a blue ocean of organizations here that are going to have to comply.
Are credit card transactions exempt for subscriptions?
And that's the target we're going to be going after the deadline.
So what I'm getting at is that let's say you're a part of a thing that does an annual billing and they say pay now and you can use a credit card. To me, that's just about everybody then. If you're the credit card company is financing this, no?
I don't think that one doesn't apply.
Okay.
Yeah, I think probably more of anything going to be like a PII, right?
Because that one's already covered under the banking regs.
I'm sorry, PCI, right, Bob?
PCI, yeah, they're going to fall under
All
PCI.
that way.
And don't forget, guys, credit card counseling companies and risk management companies. We're talking to
to the president of the Florida Risk Management Association. And he's got like credit repair companies, credit card management companies, and all these business, they're all falling under these safeguards rules.
So, yeah,
Who's sharing, by the way? Just who was sharing that?
what was that?
I was wondering who's talking. Sorry.
That was
Oh,
Ben.
Ben Filippelli.
Oh, hey, Ben. Ben, so can you go over that again, just real quick? What you're seeing in Florida?
Yeah, so we stumbled across, I didn't realize that video was off. We stumbled across a guy who was giving the president of the Florida, it's like a risk association. I gotta dig up the name, but he was a president of like some risk management association, and in his portfolio of like who's in their like, you know, their group were like credit card counseling companies, credit repair companies, other risk management firms. And we had a conversation with him, and he is already on this FTC, was just doing a speech on it at the national organization. So he's of the opinion that his whole, you know, that whole group of, you know, of businesses are all FTC safeguards required.
Ben, just a quick question, and maybe to you and then to Bob, or if you will. So, you know, they talk about, obviously, you know, you would submit this in your annual report. So I liken this to, and tell me if I'm off base here, you know, the whole, you know, in theory, what CMMC will have, right? Will these, you know, people that could, you know, come in and actually validate. Does it appear FTC has, quote unquote, the staff to then, you know, validate / invalidate? Because
So what's happening here with the FTC side is there is no filing requirements. There's a requirement in there, depending on the size, to report to the board, to have a qualified individual report to the board, but that's as far as it goes from a reporting perspective. However, if there's a data breach, they're going to want to see all the documentation around what's going on.
Okay, I for some reason I thought I had read, Bob, maybe correctly, so there was something about in your annual.
Not yet.
In our thing, you know, and you know, Bob and I are coming from the same cloth over here. When we're doing our presentations, we're liking it to wearing seatbelts. Right.
Okay.
Right. In other words, you know, a cop's not going to pull you over for wearing a seatbelt, but if you're in an accident, you don't have your seatbelt on, so you know you're going to get, you know, the fines and everything are coming. So we're like saying, hey, you you might, you know, if you don't do anything, no one's going to know. But if something happens, here come $100,000 fines. Here comes jail time. You know, it's going to be an issue. I think the jail time is the teeth. We'll see.
The jail time is definitely the teeth, especially when you look at the fact that the jail time could be because of gross disregard. And what are we doing? We're educating people about it in the first place. So we might be pushing the jail, helping push the jail time along. Yeah. But the real big thing to remember on the FTC side is this is to protect consumers. So they are really going after trying to protect consumer information, and gives them some teeth to go after people now to do the right thing.
Yeah. Sorry.
And the FTC message, I actually, Ben was just talking about working with a JV partner. I actually managed to do 2 webinars for Mike Michalowicz's people on Profit First people. And they were all CPAs and bookkeepers. And the resounding message from the people that I talked to after that webinar was, why isn't the IRS telling us this? They're thinking the IRS is the only compliance thing they have to listen to. Guys, I booked 20 appointments because of 1 webinar.
Wow, Bob, good for you.
That was it's a 30% conversion rate on that webinar.
Yeah.
I hope you're all listening to this. And Bob, are you for hire?
Bob's too busy.
Yeah. Bob,
I had to create a special program just for the Profit First people, because we got 20 appointments.
Bob, were there any pieces of, as you recall now, like if you said, hey, these are the top 3 or 5 things that made someone like the light bulb go off, to go, you know what, I do need an appointment with Bob. What would you say are the standout things to you?
Standout thing is that, there's safeguard, it's personal liability for these people now, especially if they're not doing what they need to be doing. And, Chris and I were talking about it this morning on our podcast, is like, so many data breaches now, people are getting desensitized to even hearing the message. So we got to change up the message. And now it's personal liability for these guys. And the fact that the FTC is now coming after people to protect consumers even more. They've been doing it for years on marketing messages. Well, it just got deeper.
It's interesting. Really interesting. So it's the personal, the fact that as a quote unquote, as the CEO, I'm personally now, potentially going to be, brought into, potential jail time, potential all these things. I can't just sit here and sit back.
So I actually created a coaching program specifically for these solos to help them implement FTC safeguards. So we're into week 4 of a coaching program where I'm taking them through all the stuff you've got sitting there. Last week, we went through a bunch of awareness training. This week is encryption.
And who's the coaching program for, Bob?
It's for those 1 to 5 solo entrepreneurs that aren't a good fit for us from an MSP perspective, but they will gladly pay me for coaching to help them put a compliance package together.
That's really cool. Really, really clever.
Got 9 people signed up in a week.
That's awesome, dude. Way to scale. Are you having AI create any of your content for you?
Damn right. I actually have a trained chat. I have a trained chatbot about the current FTC regs, including my program outline. And I literally go in and say, give me week 4's message, and we go from there.
That's so cool, Bob.
Are MSPs required to do this too? That's a really good question, Ben. And the answer is, it depends on who your clients are. Because a part of the FTC regs say that the clients have to vet their vendors. So if you have clients that need to be compliant, the answer is yeah.
So again, and we had Brian Blakely on the cyber call 2 weeks ago, Bob, and he had wrote do you know Brian or of him?
Yeah.
He wrote a great, he writes these intriguing blogs on LinkedIn to get your attention, and it was MSPs, compliance is coming to get you. And it was like, now that I got your attention, but the point I wanted to make here, Bob, was, although quote unquote, we're not regulated, whether it's, your customer, Bob, looking back through at you, or the customer's, customer, right? Saying, okay, do you have these pieces in, and then tell me about the service providers that are touching your data. So that in essence, these controls and policies are getting put on us, whether they're direct or indirect. And how are we managing that in our business and the costs associated with really compliance in a reverse supply chain, if you will?
Sure. Well, the other thing with the insurance, if somebody has a data breach, I don't care what your personal agreement is with that business owner, the insurance company could potentially be coming after you.
Right, especially depending on what you did or did not do and how you documented or did not document. Fair.
I worked for a pool company once, and they were getting constantly pulled into lawsuits based on the steps that they built for somebody's pool because somebody dove in wrong someplace else. So it doesn't, the lawyers go and try and touch everybody.
Yeah, really good, really good. Bob, thank you. Love to have you on the cyber call sometime if you're open to it. You too, Ben. It would be really cool to have you guys on and talk about this from the MSP's perspective. Okay, let's see, let me just check chat. Ben, when you said, I wonder if someone seems to, Ben, what did you mean? And what do you mean about CMMC? You have to be compliant.
Well, to support somebody and access their data like that is going for CMMC compliant, you have to have that same level, if not above. So I didn't know if the FTC was going to start doing something similar to that. So that you also have to maintain that same compliance being a vendor.
Look, I mean, it just simply calls out whether it's CMMC, whatever decade that comes out in, or FTC or whatever. But it just simply calls out that as MSPs, you know, we have got to, if we're not building our own internal security program, you're way behind and you need to start. I would surmise it that way. Bob, fair statement, Ben? You know,
I would say, see if Bob agrees with me. I would say the first thing as an MSP you should do is get risk letters out to all your clients and letting them know that you're not covering all this stuff. That's probably the first thing I would do. If you don't have a plan in place to cover them, probably the first thing I would do is notify all your clients, hey, we're not doing these things for you, and you know, we're not going to be liable. Of course, you know, word it in a nicer way, but you get the basic gist of it. Because anything happens, the insurance company's got to look at you. You're the IT provider. You didn't perform these duties. Why didn't you do it? Well, we told the client they chose, right, not to pay for it. Okay. Well, where's that documented?
well, and Bob, I want to hear you, but like, again, just like, I mean, just look at it right here.
Mhm.
I mean, this is pretty much what Bob, you were saying, right? I mean, calls it out when you said it depends. Well, you know, based on your size and scope, if that customer has a breach and the FTC comes in there and says, tell me about your security program, and they go, okay, so let's talk about F, right, Bob? This is where a flashlight's coming your way. Fair?
Sure. So be careful here. You know, don't limit, you know, you don't want to limit the scope there to say MSP service providers for that client. It's anybody that client's getting services from for their clients.
Yeah.
Got it. So in other words, cloud services or
Exactly. Cloud services. It could be the people, you know, their service provider could be the people out, you know, a extreme example, the people taking out the garbage. You know, the shredding people that they're using, are they actually shredding it? Can they prove it?
Yeah, really good stuff. Really good stuff. So I got a question for all of you out there, aside from you know, Ben and Bob, but what are your thoughts and, you know, good stuff, and can you use this in your business to you know, drum up 30 appointments like Bob, right? Your thoughts?
I'm gonna throw something back out to you guys that might be helpful to send out for the community, is to put together a notification letter that we can send out to all of our clients that the FTC deadline is passed. You're not compliant. Let's talk.
It's on the 9th, right, Bob? I think it got extended.
June 9th is the extended deadline.
Right.
Whether it gets, I haven't seen anything where it's getting extended again. The auto dealers, the calls that I've been on have really embraced the fact that they really need to be in compliance. Some of the other people have been questionable, but there was if you go to, I actually heard an interview where they actually had the author of the law on the webinar for New Jersey for auto dealers.
Bob, why do you think that auto dealers more so? Just curious, like why?
Because I think well, auto dealers sell cars as a way to raise money. You know, they understand they've got a lot of compliance going anyway. So when this came down and said it's a compliance issue, they had people that were already there.
Got it.
And the fact that they're called out explicitly in the reg doesn't hurt.
Yeah. But we were talking about different companies, and Andy, because you deal with healthcare, one that just struck me, and Bob, I'm going to ask you first, and then I got to believe MSPs have a fair amount of the potentially, is like, Bob, just take like orthodontist. Like, I think about a payment plan with an orthodontist. Again, is that going to comply or not?
I don't think, you know, a payment plan isn't turning into a major financing agreement. You know, they're self-financed, because the reg does say that layaway plans don't count.
Okay.
What about where they do breast augmentation, facials? I forget the name of the doctor right now, but
facial,
right.
Yeah.
But a lot of those are going out to like care credit. So they're not, I don't think they're actually servicing and processing the loan.
But aren't they
Finance?
forwarding that information?
Could be.
They're effectively the finder.
I think these
Yeah.
are things that are gonna get ironed out over time with, as it works through courts and lawsuits and stuff.
Andrew,
Yeah.
Andrew, do a search for Finder.
Okay, sure. Bear with me, Bob.
We have a real estate attorney does closings, and he's not arguing, but he doesn't think he qualifies for FTC, even though he processes credit cards, all kinds of stuff. So I just told him, I said, he goes, I don't think it's me. I said, look, you'll be the first attorney in the country that gets to go all the way to the Supreme Court and figure out what it's going to end up being.
You
wanna
Ben,
be
you
an
raise a
attorney, go
point.
for it.
Every one of these businesses have typically an attorney affiliated with them in some way. Talking to law firms about this would be a great door opener for a referral.
Yeah.
Talking to the bar association about it would be even better.
Well, I like how you think. I wish I thought that way initially.
And as a funny note, Bob, I don't know if I told you this on the other call, but we're doing an SEO audit for our site. And I said, hey, if we ran the AdWords for like FTC, safeguards campaigns, what does it look like? And the guy pulled it up and he goes, there were 150 searches last month for FTC safeguards. I go, how is that even possible?
Mm-hmm.
How is that even possible? That means nobody knows what the hell's going on.
No, like if you search FTC safeguards, I was seeing some of the other people we know showing right at the top in New Jersey, and they're in California.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
this is a blue ocean, and what's going to happen is we're going to get a couple fines out there, and then we're going to go from there. Okay, so Finder. Those companies bring together buyers and sellers, and then the parties themselves negotiate and consummate the transaction. That just described every BNI room in the U.S.
Oh,
I think it's going to be hard. I think it's going to be hard to enforce. But when we see some of these, other, some of these contractors or people that are bringing financing to the table, I think that's where it's going to be discovered.
So Andy, to your question on that, I think the orthodontist is a gray area, but you could also expect to see a big, large orthodontic practice that has, piles of money that they're shuttling off to finance companies might someday get caught up in it. And as Bob stated earlier, it's going to wind up working out in the courts.
Yeah, I'm thinking like the big dental chains, for example. They all, if you're putting in false teeth, the posts, that can be a $20,000 gig, and most people don't cough that up. They finance it.
So I don't know if everyone saw this, but in New York, there was $1 million plus fine, not for a data breach, but for failure to follow their policy, documented cyber policies. That was issued by the New York New York DFS, New York Financial Services.
Bob, if you could post that link in the chat, that'd be very helpful.
Basically, Bob, just share. It almost seems like when we look at it again ourselves as MSPs and what we do, like not saying this particular case, but it's almost like every case is a precedence of negligence. Like just, hey, you did really nothing to implement security in your organization, or as an example.
And most of the stuff on this one, when I find it, had to do with investigation of third parties, of the third party vendors.
Interesting. Okay, I know we only have a few minutes left here. I'll save one more for next week in the news stuff, but really good. Again, I want to really thank Ben and Bob and the other Ben for really chiming in here and giving perspective. Really, really helpful and really timely to, again, think about this. If, Bob generated 30 appointments.
22.
And 32.
22.
Oh, sorry, 22 appointments. Still, right, Bob? 22 appointments.
76 attendees, 22 appointments.
Not too shabby, right? And what's your close rate? 99, give or take?
Nah, we closed half of them, a third of them for the Easy FTC program.
That's awesome. But it's still even like getting into an assessment, right? With them is it's good, really good stuff.
And plus he gets his name out there, right? So if that, that CPA runs into a circle with another CPA and they go, oh yeah, we use this guy, he was great, right? And all of a sudden the lead pops up as a referral, from some 15, 20 user CPA firm.
Yeah, really good point, Ben.
Yeah.
Okay, so the lender was Media One. Let me grab the link.
Thanks, Bob. By the way, any of you guys going to be in Orlando next week at Secure?
I have a question, by the way, not for Secure. I apologize.
No, I was just seeing if anybody's going to be there. I'd love to say hi. But got to meet you in person briefly, Andy, at CISA.
Yeah, we did. I have a question for SaaS alerts. This compliance piece took the meeting, and it resonates to the real power that this has, especially when policies need to be crafted or followed by a client. Have you guys thought about ways that SaaS alerts could plug in information to help establish compliance or help establish, hey, these things aren't being done and they should be, based on that profile?
We're certainly not going to jump into the arena, Andy, of creating policy templates in terms of written policy, that sort of thing. To the extent that we will be bringing forth in Fortify the capability of enforcing policies in the Microsoft tenant, eventually the Google tenant, others that can enhance this, especially around data sharing. And to the extent that we're already monitoring and alerting for especially the external data sharing, but the odd file elements, those are components of a policy that that you as MSP should be advising your tenant.
Absolutely agree. I lost Chuck. But where I was going with this is having the reporting to be able to provide that as an artifact to a compliance statement.
I think I broke up on you guys.
Yeah. What I said, I don't know if you heard, Chip, was being able to create artifacts that could be associated with a compliance statement that SaaS Alerts has purview over, if that makes sense.
Makes sense. Hey, Andy, I've got Andrew and Andy. I've got to leave it there for a 2 o'clock.
No worries, guys.
Yeah, I got one too.
All right, everybody. Well, great session again. Everybody, thanks for joining. Thanks for the input. We'll look forward to seeing you here next week. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Yes.
Bye.